Hey Photo World, welcome back to another episode here on takeandtalkpics.com. This is another episode from the former podcast. Please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join the email list. Let's get to that 1,000 subscriber marker so that way I can add a new video every single week. Enjoy. Hey Photo World, takeandtalkpics.com. I'm Rob Kruger. Good to have you here again. We are in episode 41, and today's featured guest is Bryan Peterson. Today's featured guest is Bryan Peterson. Bryan, are you ready to rock?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm ready to rock.
I catch you at a bad time, but I tell you I'm going to do an intro.
Go ahead.
Awesome. Bryan is an award-winning commercial photographer and has been for the past 30 years, and an educator in photography for the past 20 years. He is the founder of Bryan Peterson's School of Photography and has done work for clients such as American Express, Kodak, UPS, Phillips, and Citibank, just to name a few. In addition, Bryan is the author of such best-selling books as Understanding Exposure, Understanding Shutter Speed, Beyond Portraiture, Creative People Photography, and Learning to See Creatively. Bryan, welcome to Take and Talk Pics.
Hey, thanks, man. I can't wait to share with your listeners what all's going on in my life.
Absolutely, and that's all it is, and I've barely scratched the surface. So could you take a moment to introduce yourself to Photo World and let us know more about you and your business?
Yeah, you are correct so far in what you said, but also I want your I want your listeners to know most of my commercial work is really selective these days because I put so much of my energy into my online photography school, as well as my workshops that I offer around the world. I'm really at a point in my life where it's fun for me to take what I've learned and give back. But it's a challenge, too, because in this day and age, my greatest competitor is the iPhone. So I say that in a really healthy way, quite honestly, because I've had a number of students over the years. The school I've opened up 7 years ago. In that time, what were used to be digital point-and-shoot photographers, they've dropped those cameras in exchange for their iPhone. So it's the same market that's coming into the school, meaning that once they've exhausted the somewhat limited capabilities of their iPhone, they do step up and buy a DSLR, and that's where the school comes into play. But we do actually offer an iPhone photography course, which is one of our more popular courses at the school, and not surprisingly, that course is taken by the same people who take the other courses as well. So we're able to serve both communities, and in many cases, both communities, as I call them, are actually the same photographer. So,
yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about being able to take mobile photography and implementing it into the professional realm. Not as a replacement, but as an accent to what we're already doing. So,
right.
I mean, that's a great insight
the one
to see
thing I
that.
will say that's doing the industry a bit of a disservice, and not surprisingly, it's coming from the people at Apple. And I'm excited if I were working for them, I'd be excited too about the iPhone, just like you would about the Galaxy. But when you and I both look at these incredibly huge current ad campaign of these billboard-sized photos,
right,
taken with iPhone, I'm sure they were, but I guarantee you're never going to get a print that big that's going to hold up taken with an iPhone. So there's a little bit of misinformation being out there that all they need is the iPhone to make billboard-sized prints. I mean, that's not going to happen, but whatever.
Yeah, the consumer market, they hear the megapixels, but they don't understand the sensor size is a huge factor.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. But that's for another day.
Yeah. Well, and it'll be in your workshops and in your classes. So Photo World, if you want to learn more, sign up and take a class, educate yourself. Bryan, can you start the inspiration flowing and get us involved in the story of you and what you're doing and just kind of how you run your business? Do you have a mantra or a quote you live day to day by and how you apply that?
I was intrigued by your question that you shared with me about this last week. And I did a lot of thinking about it and realized I don't have one. But yet I could break it down and simply say this, that I've certainly lived this way for the last 40 years. And it's simply this, that there's been seldom any dream that I didn't have that didn't work. And I realized that most dreams that anybody has will work as long as you do. And that's pretty much it. So if you want your dreams to work, then go to work.
Yeah.
And they're just not going to happen. I know I've met a lot of photographers who've got some great work and they put it up on the web and they think, okay, how come my phone's not ringing? It's like, well, because you're not letting people know you have stuff up on the web.
Right.
Yeah, but everybody looks at the web. Well, they don't really look at the
Yeah,
web.
you and the 30 million other photographers out there.
Exactly. So people still forget that they have to, and in my opinion, I personally enjoy it, is that face-to-face contact.
Yeah.
I really enjoy hitting the streets and going out and meeting people, knocking on doors, walking into ad agencies, walking into graphic design firms, finding out where these people have their weekly or monthly meetings, become a member of the American Institute of Graphic Artists, for example, which I can join, and then, mull around those meetings and introduce myself to people. And ultimately, what happened 40 years ago, in my opinion, is still happening today. If you have reasonable talent, you're going to get work as long as you then extend yourself to these people with a handshake and become personal, get involved with them and ask them what they do and, how much they enjoy what they're doing. And you really start to find out, that the person you're talking to, they've got clients that I don't even have anything that I would ever shoot for. So therefore, I just learned something. I would never work for this person. So I'm going to move on. And then you find out there are people out there who do advertising or design for the kind of work that you do for clients. And you think, these are the people I'm going to try to go fishing with.
Yeah.
And I mean that literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you're sending them emails and wishing them a happy birthday. And so what I'm really getting at here is that more often than not, people will hire photographers with reasonable talent, but more than anything, they hire photographers they get along with.
Yeah. Photo world, we're bombarded with photos every single day, constantly, 24/7, anywhere we look, anywhere we go, and especially online. And it's the same with your potential client. So your photos may be good, they may be great even, but it's hard to stand out against all the noise. So those handshakes go a long way because now there's something to connect your talents to.
Yeah.
Even if you're reasonable, like Bryan said, which I thought was a good way of describing it because it's so true.
Well, I've often told my students, I said, you will always remember the person who rear ends you. You will seldom remember the person who crosses a crosswalk at a stoplight in front of you.
Yeah.
So the point being is, make some noise and leave a lasting impression, preferably not rear-ending somebody, but the same idea.
You never know who you meet that way, though. So
It's true.
Awesome. So, Bryan, what sparked your interest in photography enough to actually pursue it as a career?
I was actually drawing as a young kid from the age of 5, and I got barely through high school with a GPA of 1.9. And I was drawing. I was committed to doing nothing but being a commercial artist as an adult. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what that meant back at the time of 18 years old, but it sounded good. And I had a really skill for drawing. And my frustration with it, though, was because my detail in my drawings were such that it took a long time. So my brother said, your work is so realistic, and this is an older brother who was an amateur photographer. He said, why don't you borrow my camera and take pictures of the scenes that you're drawing, and then you can make prints in my darkroom, and then you can sit at home and draw what you're drawing based on the photograph. And that way you don't have to be out in the cold and the wind and the rain waiting for your drawing to complete, which is what I would do. I would take my Volkswagen bus to a given location throughout the Pacific Northwest and find something that I wanted to draw and just stop. And of course I had my drugs. This is 1970, right? So, I'd roll a joint and start drawing and just have the whole world at my feet, so to speak, all by myself, and had a great time. And but I still got frustrated with the amount of time it took. So I was selling a lot of this work at local and county state fairs and stuff, and would always sell it enough to buy the necessary things in life as well as gas and go to my next location. But I got turned on by photography by him, and I said, wow, this is like even quicker than drawing. And hell with drawing, I'm just going to take pictures. And I was lucky. I decided I'm going to make this a living. And 5 years later, I made my very first sale to a company in St. Louis. And it was, at the time, I didn't know what it was called then, but this was 1975. And it was 2 stock photography sales. And each of them was worth $75. And that was enough for me to then quit my job at the camera store. At least I thought it was, because I just figured, well, it's going to be like this every week. And of course, I was back at the camera store maybe within a month saying, can I please have my job back? Because it's rough out there. So they said, yeah, sure. So for about 6 more months, I continued to work. And then I just said a leap of faith and said, let's go for it. And I haven't looked back since. I've been very lucky. I got into magazine work at that point and then eventually slid into corporate work and then advertising.
Very good. And I love that you brought us right there with a lot of details, some more than we probably needed, but a lot of details to get the full story on where it all began, and just pursuing the passion of the art and the act of making things, which I think is really cool. And I can't draw, and I've never been able to, so it was always just for the pictures. But I'm always intrigued when people come from painting or drawing or something else where, photography was just a piece of what they were doing, and then it became a new passion and the pursuit. So I get really interested in those stories all the time. Can you share with us a little piece about the business? Because at the end of the day, we are doing work and we have to make a living and pay our bills and eat and everything, and even get gas to go to the next scene to draw, And in the business side of things, there's ups and there's definitely downs. Can you share with Photo World a time when you had to learn the hard way, maybe a failure moment that didn't work out so well?
Yeah, I certainly have had my share of successes and failures both, but probably the greatest failure that really impacted my life was in 1989. I was hired by a Houston design firm, one of the more well-known design firms in the USA that was doing a lot of the Fortune 500 corporate annual report work. And this is a big job. I've been bugging this particular design firm for a couple of years to get a job, and they finally called. And I knew who they had hired in the past and continued to hire even when I was working for them. And these were some important photography people in the business. So I had figured it was one of those things that I had made another step up the ladder, so to speak, and was getting close to the top now that I'm being hired by this company. So they sent me down to South America and to Colorado and Wyoming and also North Dakota and also up into Canada and then finally to Australia. And it was all for a gold mining company. And I knew what they told me to go out and shoot. And I just said, oh, that's all they want? Oh, wait till I get back. My God, are they ever going to be blown away? Because that's kind of pedestrian. Maybe they don't really realize what I'm capable of. And the lesson learned was, because when I got back, they rejected the entire shoot and said, we can't use any of this stuff. And I said, what? This is some of my best work. And they said, oh, I don't have any doubt. It's gorgeous, but this is not anywhere close to what we asked you to shoot. I said, well, yeah, but I just thought maybe you were kind of using that as a guide. No, we wanted you specifically to shoot these certain things, and they're in your shots somewhere, but your pictures are far too compelling, and they actually use that word, compelling, to where it won't fit the caption of what we're talking about, because people are going to go, well, what are they talking about? There's nothing of that going on here. And I was devastated. I thought, holy shit, I feel this is like the company that you want to get in bed with. Mm-hmm. And I just blew it. And I knew my career was over. But regardless, I said, you know what? I get it now. Tell you what, I offered at my expense to go back to these very places and get exactly what they wanted. And I said, in fact, I will leave in the morning. I'll book my flights right away. And he was like, I really appreciate that. I want you to understand, though, we're not paying you to go back. I said, no. In fact, you're not paying me at all. I will not bill this job. I realize the mistake I've made, the aggravation I'm obviously causing you. We all got deadlines, and I didn't deliver, and I promised, And I said, I really, you have to just let me do this, and I did it. I went back and turned in everything, and they were more than thrilled. One, that they got what they wanted, even though it took 2 times to get it. And 2, I think that they probably experienced a non-ego photographer, maybe, and I'm sure they were accustomed to that at that time. Mm-hmm. But, where it's like, well, screw you, you don't know who you're talking to. Because I've actually met photographers like that.
Oh, yeah.
Where they actually blow a job and they just can't handle it. But I took it like a right uppercut, and got up off the mat and went out of the ring and went and did it all over again. And like I said, I didn't bill them for it. I never got a call from them again, but I did get 2 calls from their incredibly close competitors who had heard the story and said, "You're our kind of guy." So in the end, I actually picked up a little more work, I know, than I probably would have overall. Because once you had taken a job and succeeded with this one company, there was kind of an understanding that you wouldn't jump to the competitors.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, the competitors knew that this company wouldn't hire me again, so they went and contacted me. And I had a good run for about 3 years where I was in that little niche of corporate Fortune 500 photographers doing some of the higher profile annual reports. And it was fun. And then following that, things really crossed over into the advertising community, which ultimately, I think for most of us in this business of commercial work, that's where we want to end up because the day rates are incredibly high.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of people look at that and think, oh, that's where I'm going to go because it's good money. Yeah, it might be good money, but it's not easy getting there. You got to pay your dues. You got to work your way up the ladder. It really does still work that way in the professional world. So photo world, just having a website might not be enough. The phone's not going to ring off the hook just because you exist. So get out there, shake hands. And even when you make a mistake, trying to do your best and recover that mistake, even if that still doesn't work, it can still lead to other things because you never know who hears about you. You never know who else is shaking hands and who they know face to face. So their networks can really be influenced by the little things you do. Bryan, we have a wide range of photographers listening. Can you share with Photo World one thing, just a little nugget of information that you think would lead to growth and success in their business regardless of their current level?
Yeah, I can honestly say that I've seen many photographers give up on an idea for several reasons. One, they feel that the overall commercial photographic community probably won't respond favorably to it. Or B, they don't feel they have the resources to bring it into fruition. Whether that be an idea that involves many models or many props or many days away from home or many nights away from home. That to me is the biggest mistake. And I think we can all relate to that to some degree as we get older, especially. It's the old classic saying of the guy who works for Ford or GM for his 45 years and gets his gold watch. And then he's thinking, man, there's so many things I wish I would have done different in my life. Mm-hmm. And I think as photographers get older, at least something I'm hearing, a lot of them complain about an idea they had when they were in their early starts of their career. And they just allowed things to influence their decisions and give up on the idea because somebody said, it's not going to work. And they said, yeah, you're probably right. And then, by God, 10 years or 10 months later, there it is. Somebody else did it.
Right.
They go, no, that's my idea. Yeah. Oh, God. I can think of a couple of examples. A couple years ago, I think it's been 2 years now, and I apologize because I'm really good at this normally, but I cannot forget the photographer's name who did this amazing book of dogs in swimming pools going after the ball.
Yeah, I saw some of that.
That book just flew off the shelves.
Yeah.
Right? I remember in Sonoma, California in 1989 or 1990, one of those years, and I was living there. I had a backyard swimming pool, and a lot of us did in the neighborhood. And 4 doors down was a photographer from the Bay Area, and he also was a underwater photographer. Well, he took a photograph of his lab jumping in the pool while he was in the deep end with his Nikonus. And the lab's coming right at the lens, and I said, dude, that's incredible. I said, you ought to do a calendar, is what I said. You ought to do a whole calendar on your dog jumping in the pool like that. He's going, come on, people don't do dog shit, I don't mean that, Like, well, yeah, you're probably right, and it was probably a year later, I think, and I remember the guy's first name was Bill. I can't remember his last name. Oh, boy, I forget. But American Photo Magazine and also PDN produced a story about this guy, Bill, who was a photographer in New York, and his Weimaraners, dogs. And he did a calendar. He did a whole book. And I often thought of my friend back in Sonoma, who I suggested to do a calendar about his lab jumping in and out of the pool. And again, there's an idea, nothing happened to it, it gets pushed aside. And 2 years ago, here's this award-winning, phenomenal book of all these dogs jumping in the swimming pool, going after these, red balls or whatever they were.
Right.
There was not a page in that entire book that couldn't stand on its own. It was an incredible project.
Right.
And Scott Stuhlberg, who teaches for me at the school, this, again, I apologize, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's a good friend of Scotty's. And it's one of those ideas it's a grand slam, in the photo industry. And now he's doing puppies. It's like, okay, the publisher said, hey, if grown dogs work, let's do puppies.
Right. That's awesome. And I mean, it's a really good tip for photo world to say, if you got an idea, it doesn't matter if it's going to be a success or a failure. Attempting it is going to let you know. But the second you say, no thanks, I'm not even going to try it, or somebody else, suggests, it's probably not worth it, and you agree, then you've already failed. I did a little podcast not too long ago for one of our Monday messages, and I quoted Henry Ford, where he said, it doesn't matter whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And it's like, it just goes back to that. If you try it, there might be some hope. So photo world, take a chance on yourself, take a chance on your ideas, because someone else will think of it. It's true.
I promise you somebody will do it. They may not do it in the next 10 minutes, but in the next 10 months or 10 years for sure.
Yeah, you'll see it. I mean, there's endless possibilities, but we all kind of have good ideas that overlap. So, take it while it's hot right now. So, Bryan, as photographers, as business owners, as artists, I think we have these aha moments, these times when a light bulb goes off and we decide, I'm going to try that. I'm going to make that change. And then we start to see a huge 180 in our business or our photography, and it's just really on the rise. Can you recall a time, an aha moment that you had where things really took off after that came about?
Yeah, actually, I can. I was forever pushing myself to do something that would be out of the norm for us photographers to promote ourselves. We had, back in the day when I was doing a tremendous amount of commercial work, we had these books, for lack of a better word. They were like catalogs called Adweek Portfolios. There was also the Black Book and a few other ones, American Showcase. And you bought pages, 1 or 2 pages. Well, shouldn't say nobody. It was stupid to buy a single page, because then you had no idea whose page you would be opposite of.
Mm-hmm.
So psychologically, you bought into the fact that you need to buy a 2-page spread minimum, buy 4 if you could afford it. And this was all great. And the idea was, well, if you're in the Black Book, it's a foregone conclusion. You know your stuff and you're good. Black Book had one of those reputations, and it was expensive too. So it kind of weeded out people who may not be in a position to do the work, because it was assumed if you could be in Black Book, then 1, you were successful, and 2, successful to the point where you knew how the business worked.
Yeah.
And that wasn't always the case. But my point is, I wanted to do something completely different. In addition to that, I want to do something else. And so I brainstormed, and I don't recall how it all came about, but I decided people are constantly getting bombarded with photographs in direct mail, which I still, to this day, highly recommend people do.
Right.
Direct mail. Hit them over the head every 6 weeks with a promo piece. What I did back then, I interestingly enough, I'm now using the same ideas in my school to promote my online school in a different sort of way. But I put a headline, like a greeting card, on the front of this, and then they had to open up the card and then look inside, and there'd be your photograph. And in big, bold letters, it will say things like, Bryan Peterson will cause you sleepless nights. It's like, what? Bryan Peterson is over the hill. Bryan Peterson will make you reach new low points in your life. A very negative piece.
Right.
And yet you open it up and it said, the reason Bryan will cause you sleepless nights, and then it's a picture of star trails or the Aurora Borealis with a tent in the foreground, and maybe it's an ad that we did for Coleman camping equipment.
Yeah.
And it says, the reason Bryan will cause you sleepless nights is because he thinks great photography can be achieved at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, or 4 o'clock in the morning. So if you're inclined to want to sleep in, forget it. Bryan will have you out shooting at 3 a.m., making award-winning photographs. So, oh, wow, that's cute. That's clever.
Yeah.
Another one, Bryan Peterson is Over the Hill, meaning I'm too old. I don't know my stuff. And then you open it up, and it's this beautiful rolling green hills of an agricultural scene in the eastern Washington state of the Palouse. And there again, it's like whether you want to shoot over the hill, under the hill, on top of the hill, Bryan Peterson's your guy if you're looking to get a fresh viewpoint. And then on and on. Anyway, that got my phone to ring off the hook, clearly. And people would say, I need to work with you just because I sense you got a great sense of humor. Man, I love this. You're a funny guy. I want to hire you because you're funny. And would you want me to send my portfolio? No, I don't care about that. I'm sure it's good. Let's go to work. So anyway, it was revealing. Other times you would show really great work, and then I'm getting a little off subject here, but other times you show great work and then you get hired to do some really mundane work. And you'd often say to yourself, why am I doing this? I've got students who could do this job. But you keep that to yourself, right?
Right.
But anyway, that was a defining moment, certainly, and changed my career. It really put me on the map, because keep in mind, I did this mailing strictly to New York City, LA, Atlanta, and Dallas, Texas. And, not Dallas, but Chicago. And my phone started ringing off the hook. People would actually call and say, man, I don't have any work for you, but this is incredible. You're a clever guy. I just wanted to tell you, I wish I could work with you. But unfortunately, I don't have anything that would appeal to you, because it's not the kind of stuff we represent in terms of clients.
Right. And Photo World, I hope you're getting what I'm getting out of this. And it's just kind of set yourself apart. Be a little different. It's okay to be, goofy and have a sense of humor about it. It's okay to be clever and cute about it. It's an attention-grabbing technique. And we feel like, oh, if I just hit Twitter enough, or if I'm on Facebook long enough, things will just work out. And yeah, things can, but there's a lot more you can do, and you kind of have to think outside the box still. You can't just say that we're in this high-speed, fast-paced digital world, and all the tools are there. We just got to use them. It's a combination of things, and I think especially being creative is one thing we kind of always forget about. Even though we're photographers, you think that's what we'd be on, but we kind of forget about being creative in other ways with our business, too. So, Bryan, during your photography career so far, what is the best advice you've ever received?
I would say you're ready. And I'm saying that even though it's two words, or three as a contraction. But I was with a designer in Portland, Oregon, scared out of my mind. I'd been shooting out of the public eye for 5 years, and working a regular job at the camera store. And I shared in confidence with this designer who had received, him and his wife both, a tremendous amount of attention nationally for their work in corporate logo design. But they also received countless direct mail pieces from photographers. So I knew that they would be able to be in a position to look at my work and tell me, if I'm kidding myself. So I showed Robin and Heidi Rickabaugh was their name. Robin said, why are we having this conversation after I showed him my pictures? I said, well, I don't. He said, Bryan, you're ready. End of story. I got nothing else to say. Get the hell out of here. You're wasting my time. You're ready. Go on. I went, wow, coming from him, I got to believe it. So I was living in Portland, and I said, you know what? I don't want to show this in Portland, just in case this is a fluke. Maybe Robin's the only one that's going to feel this way. So I drove up to Seattle 3 hours later by car the following week, and I went specifically to the 11 most popular graphic design firms in Seattle. And I said, from the week prior, I said, I'm coming to Seattle, I'd like to share my portfolio. So I showed my work to 11 designers, and this was on a Monday. And by Thursday, I had in my pocket 5 purchase orders for 5 annual report jobs. And I'm freaking out. I've never done an annual report in my life.
Right.
Ever. And on top of that, without even realizing it, I had booked 2 annual reports for the same shoot days from 2 different design firms.
Oh, no.
So when I got home, I said, oh, my God, in all of my excitement, I booked 2 jobs on top of each other, which were 3 weeks away. So I called the one up after I talked to Robin Rickabaugh, and I said, of these 2, which do you think I would be the strongest at? And he said, definitely the phone company, which was the phone company up in Seattle at the time, US West. And so I did U.S. West and whatnot. And to make a long story short, I found myself in a big leaf maple tree, and I always had this robin's eggs nest that I had got out of a tree where I lived in Oregon I had a little gentleman farm. And I said, one of these days I'm going to use this in a photo shoot. So I took that nest with me because one of the concepts was in the U.S. West Annual Report was a 2-page spread to show linemen setting a new line down below, next to a country road, working on a country road. So I climbed a tree, put my nest in there, and kind of did this viewpoint where in the immediate foreground is this robin's egg nest. And then through the trees, you see the U.S. West truck on the country road, and these guys are putting in underground cable lines. And the client said, how the hell do you know there's a nest up there? I said, well, I put it there. He said, what? Oh my God, that's brilliant. And I was so relieved because I thought he's probably going to get all pissed off because it's not natural. And he said, man, that's brilliant. Oh, you're my kind of guy. People that make images rather than take images.
Right.
And that stayed with me. I really thought a lot about that. And I thought, that's kind of what I'm about, is making photographs as opposed to taking photographs that are really visually there in front of most of us. It's probably another reason I don't get too excited about going out and shooting what I call the common nature photographs. I've never shot Yosemite. I never shot the waterfalls at Yosemite, because what can I do that we haven't already seen?
Right.
Likewise, I can put a robin's egg nest up in a tree and have a crew from the phone company down below, and now people go, holy shit, I've never seen that before. And it's like, well, I made it, actually. The nest is from another part of the world, and I just put it up there. You got to be careful, because if that robin is not indigenous, I can't use that nest in Indonesia, for example.
Right. And now we got the internet at our fingertips. So do your homework, Photo World, when you're trying to pull that stuff. And that's totally, in my book, it's okay to do those kinds of things. I had a nature instructor who, a lot of the students like, oh, you can't pick that weed out of the frame or anything. And he's like, you're just grooming the natural world. You're not changing it really, So he thought it was okay to alter a little bit because it's really going to make the shot now, or whatever the case might be. It's okay to make those adjustments.
I was raised by a Lutheran minister, so I'm what they call a PK, preacher's kid. And tongue in cheek, I tell people that when I groom that landscape, what I'm actually doing is getting rid of Satan's work. And
I love it.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome. Bryan, do you have an app or an internet resource? And feel free to plug, because I think it's perfect time for it. An internet resource that you think Photo World could benefit from knowing about?
Well, very selfishly, of course. If Photo World has friends or family who are amateur photographers and just want to get better and not by any means be commercial, then they should be coming to the bpsop.com photo school.
Right on.
Other than that, of course, most of my books, 10 titles, are available as ebooks. And then, of course, YouTube. I'm all over YouTube with my videos that I produce for Adorama Camera in New York City.
Awesome. And Photo World knows well, we'll have all those links on your show notes page on Taking Talk Pics. So if they can't find you through a Google search or directly, we'll have a lot of those links there compiled in one spot on Taking Talk Pics. Just search Bryan in the search bar. His show notes will pop right up, and we'll have all that information and ways to connect with him there. So, Bryan, before we go, we're about to wrap it up. But could you please share with Photo World one parting piece of guidance, and then the best way that we can reach you, whether it be your website or some sort of social media that we can connect with you?
Yeah, as far as guidance is concerned, it's old news, but it needs to be repeated, and that is to stay true to yourself. Honestly, and really and truly, don't give up on an idea. That's just a big mistake. I know you got to eat, you got to support perhaps family as well. But that doesn't mean you can't still give that idea even 15 or 20 minutes out of your day some attention. And staying with that idea, I really believe, has tremendous psychological benefits. And that is that you don't have to go to that place where you're regretting not working on it. But instead, even though it's not the amount of time you want to put into the project, whatever that project might be, you're still staying with it. There's an old saying, and I still love this. It's like, good God, if I do this, it's going to take 10 years. God, by then I'll be 50. It's like, well, how old will you be in 10 years if you don't do it? Oh, yeah, I'll be 50, won't I? well, then I might as well suffer and be 50 and, wake up one day and there's my airplane in the garage that I built from scratch.
Right.
So there you go.
I love it. And then how can we be in touch with you? A website and social media? What do you have?
Yeah, I would say the best way to see what I'm doing, because it's like a lot of people, Facebook for me is it's where I connect, but that's also because of the school. But just Bryan F, like fun, fantastic, no, or the F word, whatever. Bryan F Peterson, just as on Facebook, but BryanFPeterson.com.
Photo World, just a few little last nuggets I want to pull out as highlights here. Meet face to face, shake hands, look people in the eye. There's nothing that's going to hurt you in doing so. Be true to yourself. I love that as a good wrap up to the ending as your parting piece of guidance. And then also, you're ready. Bryan said it. Robin told him. And, I'm here to tell you as well, and also hear it for myself, because every once in a while I get those days, But we're all ready. It's okay to go out and do it. So I love everything you've been saying today and sharing really nice detailed stories. I really appreciate that, and getting us to those times and those days where we can, hang out on that, V-dub bus with you and, have a moment. But Bryan, I cannot thank you enough for your time today and sharing such great value. Photo World thanks you, and happy shooting.
Guys, thank you so much, Robin.
Photo World. Our businesses can't grow unless we grow. Take the time and learn a little bit more about your Photoshop, Lightroom, and general photography skills. Kelby One is a great place to start. They have training courses, and today you can get $10 off your first course. Head to takeandtalkpics.com to the affiliates page, and we have Kelby One featured right there, where you can get your $10 off your first Kelby One course. Photo World, takeandtalkpics.com. Thank you again for joining us today, and we really appreciate you stopping by. Make sure you share this with your friends and photo family out there. We'll see you next time. This is Rob Kruger. Happy shooting.